I think last I looked, there's 300 or 400 nonprofit organizations in Paducah. So the need is immense for people to get involved and to get engaged and to do something. Everybody can do something. And that's just a belief that has permeated. It's in the DNA of CSI. And obviously since leaving that, it's part of my DNA. It's part of Nancy's DNA. We're both involved in organizations together. We're involved in organizations individually. But that's something that we feel is important at this stage of our life and something that we can do for this area.
That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is Steve Powless. He's my guest this week on Leadership Magnified. You just heard Steve's passion about he and his wife giving back to the community through volunteerism. And that's just part of our conversation. You're in for a real treat this week, folks. Steve is the retired chairman and CEO of Computer Services, Inc., better known as CSI. We discuss leadership at both the macro and micro levels, why having the right priorities, faith, family, and work, is key to your success, and lessons he's learned over time. A lot of takeaways in this episode. Enjoy. Here's our conversation. Steve, welcome to Leadership Magnified. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Todd. Just before we start, I just want to say that I think the whole podcast series that you've taken has just a wealth of knowledge for everybody. And it's just amazing. And thank you for doing that for this community.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot, considering it's a new venture. You never know how it's going to be successful or not. Before we dive into leadership, let's just let folks know a little bit about you, who you are, wife, kids, grandkids. Who are you, Steve?
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Evansville, Indiana. Grew up in a traditional blue-collar family. My dad worked at the Whirlpool factory. My mom was a bookkeeper at the county assessor's office. I was a middle child of 3 boys, and according to birthright, that makes me the lost or confused one, which explains a lot to my friends. I think it's helpful for them to know that. Went to Murray State University, graduated, and went to work for a large computer company called Burroughs Corporation in Western Kentucky. Eventually migrated back to Evansville, worked there for several years, became a manager. And when I was with Burroughs Corporation, which sold computer systems and check processing systems, one of my accounts happened to be a company in Paducah, Kentucky called CSI that was founded by John Williams. And so about 1986, Burroughs Corporation and Sperry, they merged 2 huge companies, 120,000 employees. And so they decided, like happens in a lot of mergers, that they didn't need somebody in Evansville to run that operation. They'd run it out of another city. So here I found myself at that point, not sure what I was going to do next. One day I got a call from John Williams, and he said, "Do you want to come talk to us about a potential role at CSI?" So I drove down and sat in his living room for several hours talking, met his wife Vivian, had dinner with the family, and knew at that point that this was really something that I really wanted to do. And so he offered me a job that began a 35-year career that changed the trajectory of my life. It was just an amazing opportunity and something that I'm very thankful for.
And on top of that, somewhere along the line, you and Nancy got together.
That's correct. We did along the way as well. And so, currently have between us 4 children and 6 grandchildren, which for those that have grandchildren know they are everything. So yes. And so we've been together since for about 12 years now,
All right.
15 years.
Great. Okay, so I see personally your leadership kind of divided into 2 groups. You mentioned CSI, and we're going to get to that, Computer Services, Inc. But first I want to focus on your leadership involvement in the community. You've had a hand in a lot of things across Western Kentucky at many different levels. So why do you believe it's important to give back to the community in the ways that you have?
It goes way back. I think I moved to Paducah when I was 31 years old, and John Williams had a great influence on me. And he did because it was pretty simple. John believed that if you benefited from a community, then you really had an obligation to help strengthen that community. And he modeled that. Busiest person that I've ever known, but yet he was involved locally with multiple organizations, between fundraising and leading organizations, between statewide. He worked for all kinds of different task force for different governors, National Boy Scouts, and the list goes on and on of organizations that when he felt that his leadership could be valuable to them, he became involved. And he just didn't become a board member. He became very engaged, and he always had time to do that. And I never heard him say a negative word about being involved in that. And that really stuck with me. And so I tried to carry that message throughout CSI and try to take that message to our employees that we need to be involved and we need to be in part of the community. And we're a very decentralized organization with offices all over the country. And so that message began to resonate that we want people involved. We went so far early on to say, if you donate 1 hour of pay a month, you get a day off. Now, when you think about that, if you got 1,200 employees, that's pretty significant. But that was the statement we wanted to make. And I think you'll look in this area today and you'll see a lot of CSI people or former CSI people sitting on boards. And the reason is because, we really have an obligation from a leadership standpoint to help strengthen this area. And so the influence of John early on me helped me to become a part of some things. And once you become a part of it and you can see an ability to help facilitate a change and help give an organization the benefit of some of the experiences you had, there's really nothing better than doing that.
Yeah, you got skin in the game in your community.
It's a wonderful feeling, and everybody has something to contribute. I think last I looked, there's 300 or 400 nonprofit organizations in Paducah. So the need is immense for people to get involved and to get engaged and to do something. Everybody can do something. And that's just a belief that has permeated. It's in the DNA of CSI, and obviously since leaving that, it's part of my DNA. It's part of Nancy's DNA. We're both involved in organizations together. We're involved in organizations individually, but that's something that we feel is important at this stage of our life and something that we can do for this area.
That's wonderful. Let's staying on the theme of being involved in organizations. You're, if I have this right, board chair out at Lifeline.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to me about a campaign for recovery. What are the different elements of that, and where does that stand right now?
Yeah. Well, first I'll say thanks for asking a question about Lifeline, because now you're really tugging at my heartstrings. Campaign for Recovery was something that was born about 6 years ago in the conceptual phase. And for those that don't know about Lifeline, it is a long-term residential treatment center for drug and alcohol addiction. It's been around for over 20 years. And about 6 years ago, after attending a couple banquets as a guest of one of my friends, Kenny Hunt, we were very moved by the stories of people whose lives have been changed by Lifeline. About 80% of the clients coming into Lifeline are coming from incarceration. There are people who have lost everything. They've burnt every bridge. Financial resources, they likely lost their spouses. They've lost everything in life. And even the ones that come to us have nothing but the clothes on their back. And so they're at the lowest of the lows. They are, the least of these. And so Lifeline's always been down there in the trenches helping these people for years. And when we heard those stories, Nancy and I went and sat down with our board and said, if we can help you guys, we'd like to get involved. And so we started working with that group, and it was quick to realize that they certainly had ideas and dreams of being able to serve more people, but they didn't have the resources to do that or the means to go do that. And so we became very engaged in helping them on a journey that said, let's see what we can do to enhance our facilities and people and resources. And that led to this campaign that you're talking about, which is a $14.5 million campaign that was launched about 3 years ago. We've taken so many members of the community out to see. Most people don't realize there's over 100 people, men and women, in long-term treatment in Paducah today. But the facilities for these people, the ability to get the type of counseling and things they want has been very difficult. So this campaign really targeted on, I can't do counseling, but I can go out and reach out to people and help put together a plan to go find the financial resources that will enable our team to do their work. That's the hard work. And what we have found after, well over 100 tours of people is that everybody's been touched by addiction. People, when they understand the need in this area, and we've seen it time and time again, people are willing to rise up, and they have. And Next Thursday, June 18th, is our annual banquet. It will be our celebration, and we'll report the results of this campaign, which has been designed to enable us to have two 45-acre campuses, one for men, one for women, to enhance our programs, our staffing, to create an endowment, all as a part of a bigger vision that just an extraordinary board of directors and campaign committees and others have been a part of. But this community has just been amazing as they've been forever when they recognize there's a need and they get behind it. And there's so much momentum right now. And to provide this dignity and hope and facilities that will be there long after all of us are gone.
A vital need, source in the community.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's pivot to CSI,
All right.
your role there. The highest level of now retired former chairman and CEO of CSI. CSI, how would you describe your big picture leadership in that position?
If I think of big picture, and I think of it in light that we're a very decentralized organization, probably 30% of our employees, 25% work in Paducah, and the others are scattered all across the country. Means with a decentralized model that the importance of communicating a vision and your goals and expectations and communicating your values and all those things is critically important, that you don't leave gaps in understanding of what do you stand for, what does it mean to be part of CSI, why does it matter what we do every day. And so big picture, I think you have to focus on helping to communicate that message, and from a resounding standpoint of what's important and what matters to us. So I'd put the big picture in that you've got to have that to share that, because people want to know about the purpose more than they do a process. They want to know what's there and why they're doing it. And it's much more difficult in a decentralized organization to communicate all that. We laugh because if we're hiring someone that's an officer that's going to be in the field somewhere, the joke is, well, you're going to go through 12 or 14 interviews, because before we put that person out there who represents this company, you want to make sure that that person's going to carry the right message and the right values, because they are the extension of the company to customers and employees. From a smaller picture standpoint, it's all about communicating. It's about communicating with staff. It's about learning what motivates employees, learns what's important to the individuals. As we deal with multiple generations, it's interesting because they're all motivated by different things, whether it's community service, whether it's financials, whatever it might be. That is, you have multiple generations working in an organization as a manager. Everybody is motivated the exact same way. So from a smaller picture, you have to really get down and really understand your staff and your people. And again, you have to let them know that they're important, that they're valued. And that's just a constant quest. And I think we worked at it every day to try to make sure that message made it down to the lowest levels within the organization, and that we were all really at the same level at that point from importance to the company.
Can you think of something you used to do as a younger leader that you've changed over time, don't do anymore? And if so, why?
How much time do we have?
Right. We do have a clock running.
Gosh, I think as a young leader coming up, I think that impatient, demanding, probably not being a very good listener, jumping to conclusions, working unbelievable hours, not keeping maybe the right priorities. And I talk about this in some leadership training, that trying to keep the balance of faith, family, and work, and keeping those priorities in the right order. And I certainly was not one that kept those in proper balance. But the further that I went in my career, the more that I realized just how important it was. And success really doesn't mean anything if you don't have the relationships that go along with it and that are important in your life. And so I think I was the typical young guy that wanted to get to the top and pushed hard. And I think over time you realize that it's not all about you. It's about, or initially it seems to be about you, but it's really about helping other people get what they want. And if you do that, you will be successful. You don't have to push it all yourself. And I think I learned that after a few years. So
So this next question is kind of in the same vein, but what missteps do you see younger leaders make? Even good young leaders who are doing a good
yeah.
job, but it's like I don't know if I would have done it that way.
Yeah, notwithstanding what I just said, I think that there is a tendency for young managers to step into roles and automatically assume that they've got all the answers and what needs to be done and needs to change. And I think you've got to seek first to understand exactly what's going on in any area, any department that you move into. The leader that comes in and day one says, we're going to change these 12 things, has a staff saying, I've been working here 15 or 20 years, and so now they're going to make all these changes. And invariably, I think every bit of social psychology that you look at today will say, until you have built trust, you're not going to be recognized as that leader. And you can't build trust if you're disrupting the world day one. And I'm sure there's some things that need to change, but I tell people to seek first to understand, learn to be a good listener. I think that when I think a leader is maturing when they stop using I in every sentence. I did this, I did that, I did this, and they say we did this, our team did this. And I tell managers, everybody knows who's doing the work. It's when you steal it from the others that you kind of take the heart out of an employee, that I think that's a mistake, and that doesn't build trust. It builds resentment. And so I think recognizing that as a young leader, but you're fired up, you're ready to go, you're going to conquer the world, and so you want to temper that. You don't want to totally smother it, but you got to figure out a way to channel all that energy and excitement into the right direction. And sometimes that's having a little bit of patience, which isn't always easy with younger people. And I'll speak for myself when I say that. So
Just a couple more questions, and
yeah.
we'll be done. Who's influenced you? You've mentioned John Williams, Sr., of course. Would you say in your business life he's been the most influential, or does he join some other
Oh,
folks?
he would absolutely be the most influential. I told John before I came to work for him that I respected him more than any other businessman I'd ever worked with at that point in my young career, and had a chance to work underneath him and to see really the brilliance of a visionary and a very disciplined type of a CEO and a founder and just an amazing individual. And I think that, and today I still talk to John if I have issues or situations that come up. When I started this campaign and co-chair of the Lifeline, who's the first guy I went and talked to? John Williams, to ask his advice. And so I think people like John are mentors, are people that can be there for a season of life. And I've had people, coaches, people in church. I've had friends, just local friends that were there for dark periods and some dark times in our lives. And so I think people want mentors to have some formal discipline or process with it. And sometimes it's just somebody that's going to listen to you and offer advice. And I think much like John, I think mentors see things in people before they see them in themselves. John saw something in me before I saw that in myself. I was too busy with babies at the time to be thinking about what the future was going to be like and on. And he was already thinking about the potential and what might happen if we continue to execute on his vision. And so sure, I've had a number of people and several locals in the community who know who they are that I go to and say, let's go to lunch. Let me bounce something off of you. And I think that's the common denominator of a lot of successful people is they've either had one or multiple mentors in their life that have influenced them. And I think it's so important for young leaders to go find those people and to get engaged with them and just learn.
Let's just skip to the end here. Not
Okay.
leadership related, just personality related. How do you relax? What are you reading, watching?
I'm probably a little strange in that I still enjoy working out and exercising. So I do some running, and I can kind of just relax when I run. Nancy and I love to go to the beach, sit on the patio, look out over the ocean. Love doing that. Love traveling to see grandkids and all. And so those are areas that kind of help me unwind. You mentioned about reading, and there's some really 3 authors locally that have just come out and released books, and you have Seven Legacies and One Vision, which Bill Jones had wrote about U.S. Bank. You had White Coat's Dark Secret, which was written by Mark Bryan about some history that took place here, and Funeral for My Father by a gentleman named Logan Bryce. And Logan has written a book that also, Logan Bryce Martin is a book that's written about his family and about the Paducah history. So I've enjoyed reading those because they're really rooted in the history of Paducah. And so it's pretty fascinating to read those. And as far as TV, or you mentioned those kinds of things, if I can wrestle the remote away from Nancy and watching her murder mysteries, I'll watch it. I like watching college sports and golf and things like that. So,
all right, very good. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast, and thank you for all you do in this community. It's appreciated. So,
thank you, and enjoyed being with you, Todd.
Okay. That's this week's show. If you like what you heard, post a link to the podcast on your social media pages. Video and sound by Assistant News Director Morgan Regal. Editing by Brian Clapp. Until next week, stay safe, friends.